The Allied leaders met again in August 1945. The war in Europe had ended, yet the war in the Pacific still continued. 2 out of 3 Allied leaders had changed since the Yalta Conference in February. US President Franklin D. Roosevelt had died towards the end of the Second World War and ultimately resided his presidency with his vice, now President Harry Truman. Churchill, who was at Yalta, returned back to the UK to campaign for the general election. However, it resulted in a loss for the Conservatives as the country voted for a Labour government, and presented at Potsdam was Labour leader Clement Attlee. Stalin was the only leader present at both conferences. Unlike the Yalta Conference, the Grand Alliance seemed to deteriorate. There was no common enemy between the parties, so disagreements could be more present at Potsdam as there were no more fear of strengthening wartime alliances. An example of this being Stalin's wish for Germany to pay reparations to the USSR. Truman and Attlee opposed this, arguing that the start of the Second World War was affected by reparations payments. Another major dispute was the fate of Eastern Europe. Truman and Attlee wished for independent states and governments in the East. However, Stalin pledged for the Red Army to remain in power in eastern states. With the continuing war in the Pacific, the alliance couldn't afford to fall out, so Attlee and Truman agreed with Stalin's goals in the East. Despite their many disputes within the conference, many key agreements were made between the parties. Firstly, the Nazi Party was to be banned, and its former leaders would be tried as war criminals at the Nuremberg trials, and Germans living within Poland, Hungary and Czechoslovakia were to be returned to Germany.